Hey, I'm Dean and this is Legacy Voyage. In Season 1, I'm documenting my journey to earning my first 100K net worth as a full-time college student. Join me as I share some of the lessons I learned along the way.
People in Vegas do not have the Mother's Day spirit. Like, last episode I was talking about the Grinch. People in Vegas are like the Grinch of Mother's Day, bruh. Here's the full story of how I flew to Vegas over the weekend and surprised my mom for Mother's Day in Vegas. I was already planning to go there like a week or two ago, but it really just depended on flights. So come the day of, check the flights. They're looking good. So this was a Friday. I want to say at like 5 or 6 the flight was, or at least that's when I started heading onto the flight. Landed in probably around 10 into Vegas. And I was supposed to wait for my siblings because they were coming in around the same time. Bro, but they came in like 2 hours later, so I would have had to wait there till midnight. So like, you know what? Let me just Uber there because she's staying at a hotel instead of being at home. And the hotel was only like 15-minute drive, $20 Uber. So I was like, yep, let me send that. Uber to the hotel. And keep in mind, the way I got the hotel was by the location because my sister had her location. I also had her location. So I was like, oh yeah, this is the right hotel. Pull up to the hotel. And then when I get there, I realize there's a problem. I don't know what room they're in. And so I'm like trying to figure it out. Go to the front desk. I was like, hey, I'm surprising my mom for Mother's Day. Is there any possible way I can know what room she's in? And they're like, oh, I'm not sure if I could do anything. I was like, bro, even if I show you my ID, like show you I have the same last name as them, like even then? And she was like, no, I can't do that. And so I was like, hey, so my siblings, you guys know what room she's in? Has anyone figured this out? They're like, nope. So it was kind of cooked. So I decided, you know what? I'm gonna just call her. It was a good attempt at surprising her, but it's okay. So I called her. I was like, hey, mom, what room number are you in? And she was like so confused, bro. She was like, what? What are you talking about? Because she was already knocked out at this point. It's probably already 11. And I was like, what room are you in? She's like, what are you talking about? Where are you? I was like, don't worry about that. Just tell me your room number. And she literally paused. Bro, that probably took like 5 to 10 minutes trying to get the room number out of her. Because she was just so confused, so tired, had no idea what's going on. She just wants to sleep. Finally tells me the room. They're in 1111. And then as soon as she told me the room, I just hung up. So now that I knew her room number, I was like, oh, perfect. I could just go to her room. Maybe I can still surprise her because she's not like 100% sure that I'm there. So I get into the elevator. And the only problem there is I need a card to get up the elevator. So I was cooked again. Made another plan. Instead of like having the card myself, I'll just wait till someone else, like one of the other people who's staying at the hotel, if they can swipe me in. Like, perfect. This is like the perfect plan. So I'm waiting around in the lobby, see someone about to go into the elevator, and then I go in with them. And then as they're scanning in to like, I don't know, floor 11 they were at, I was like, hey, I don't have a card. I'm here for Mother's Day trying to surprise my mom. Is there any way you can scan me into floor 11? And then he was like, well, do you have a card? I was like, no, I'm trying to surprise my mom. He's like, well, he just said that's tough. I was like, bro, do you not have Mother's Day spirit, bro? Like, this is insane. So he just let me on my own and didn't scan me in. So I went back down to the lobby and I was waiting, trying to cook up another plan. Like, how the heck am I supposed to get into this room? And so another idea popped into my mind. I could tell my mom that I delivered something or ordered something to her room, which is why I asked for the room number, and that someone needs to come pick it up from the lobby. I was like, this is the perfect plan. So I texted my mom, hey, I dropped off something, or I ordered something to your room, but they can't bring it up. Someone has to come down and pick it up from the lobby. And it was a perfect thing. So I waited there a couple more minutes, and finally, my mom came down to the lobby. So I was like hiding in this perfect corner where I could catch her reaction. And I was like waiting to hear something, but I didn't hear anything. And then she texted, I'm down, or I'm here. I was like, what? And I went out, I was like, where is she? So I went, turned the corner to the elevator. I was so confused, like, where is she? Bro, turns out I was at the wrong hotel. Because there's like, okay, there's 5 Marriotts in this area. And there's specifically 2 like literally right next to each other. But her location made it look like she was at the Marriott that I was at, but she was at the different hotel. So then I started freaking out. I was like, oh my goodness, that's tough. Like, what hotel are you at? Maybe I ordered it to the wrong one. And she was like, I'm at this hotel, which was, she sent me the right one. I was like, dang it. So I had to go figure out how to actually get there. Went outside, went around the building. It was like, the only way to get there was I had to walk all the way around this huge block. And I was feeling lazy. It was already, what, 11:20 at that time. I was just trying to get there. So I saw this wall, I saw this gate. I was like, yep, I'm going to go through there. Gate said no trespassing, so I just hopped it anyways. Finally found her room, knocked to get into the room. And luckily my auntie was in there, so she opened it up. She's like, I was like, hey, I'm surprised my mom. Like, I'm just going to wait till she gets here. So I was like, that should have been all figured out. But the only problem is that it took forever because my mom went around to the wrong hotel, the hotel that I was literally just at. And then she asked them for the package. And they were like, no, there's no package here. And so she called me. She's like, Dean, where's the package? You delivered it to the wrong thing. And then I was freaking out. I was trying to like explain. I did not know how to get her back to her room. So I told her, I was like, oh, I think I sent it to the other hotel. It's like the other wrong one. And she's like, you want me to go pick it up? I was like, no, it's okay. She was like, no, I'm literally like right here. I can just quickly pick it up. And I was like, no, it's okay. You don't have to pick it up. So I just tell her, oh yeah, I can refund it. It's okay. I'll just order it again later. And so finally she comes back to her room. And as she walks in, I surprise her. Happily ever after. That was like, that was pretty chaotic low-key. Because I had to think on my feet and try to figure out responses. But figured it out. I was finally able to surprise her. And the big lesson for this episode is prioritizing family. That's the big lesson. Because I think in the last episode, I set my weekly intention, which was to look up. It was to not be a sheep and look up. Meaning like, don't just get lost in the work. Don't just get lost in whatever, in the day-to-day. Look up and make sure to prioritize and focus on what really matters most. And for me, family matters a ton. So taking the weekend to visit mother was definitely the move, and had a good time with the fam. So that was really cool. Moving on to doubles of the week. These are 2 dubs and 2 L's from the past week. First dub, I just told the whole story. Surprising mom for Mother's Day. Happy it actually worked. Because I was lucky freaking out that it wouldn't work. But that was a big dub. And then the second dub is that I've been doing a ton of work with Leland stuff. Like putting my head down and grinding. And I think the big thing that I like about that, well, first of all, like I'm learning a ton, which is awesome. But also being able to build my rep within the company. Because now people will just start reaching out like, hey, Dean, I heard you're really good at this thing. Can you help me with it? I was like, oh yeah, say less. I'll get that done for you as soon as I can. They're like, oh, no worries. Like you have like a week to do it. And then I get it done in like 2 days. So I like building up my rep with that. And it got to the point he was like, oh, I shot him a message. I was like, hey, I've been really enjoying like gaining responsibility and grinding. And he was like, yeah, it's awesome that you have that mindset. It's great to hear. Then he said, if things keep going the way they do, who knows? Like maybe I'll have to try to convince you to drop out of school and just join us full time. I was like, bro, don't tempt me with that. Because you already know, I'm going to do that in a second. So that was a funny message. I'm not sure if I actually would do that, but we'll see. We'll play by ear and just go with the flow. Anyways, the 2 L's for this week. The first thing is that on this trip, I wish I was more present, but also more grateful to God. Because I think, first of all, with the present thing, it was my sister's volleyball tournament. I went to a tournament. I kind of wasn't paying attention. I was like a little bit distracted. Not like super distracted, but like I was playing chess for part of the games. Granted, I was only playing chess like in between the breaks. So I guess it was chill, but I think the more important thing that I wanted to work on, or like the bigger L that I took, was taking a moment to, like I said, taking a moment to look up. meaning to just like savor the moment, savor the fact that I'm in Vegas and on Mother's Day, spending time with the fam. And this is phenomenal. And taking time to like thank God for the fact that I can even do that in the first place. So I think that was, it was an L in the fact that I didn't do that in the moment, but a dub kind of, because now I know. Like that's the big thing about dubs or about L's, is that I can learn from them. So I try to do that from now on, is just like look up basically. And it's kind of interesting because as I've been thinking about this idea of looking up, I noticed that I do this a lot in my runs. Like when I'm running, it's super nice to just like, instead of looking at the ground or just looking like straight ahead or whatever, let's just look up or like look around at the nature or at the buildings or wherever I happen to be. It's nice to, I don't know, like just notice the world. But the other L that I took from the past week was, of course, sleep. Yeah, sleep was kind of cooked. Honestly, it wasn't as cooked as other trips, but it was still cooked. Like bro, on the way back, I caught a red eye. Yeah, that was brutal. Probably got four hours of sleep on the plane, 2 hours. I think like a little 2 hour nap when I got back. So 6 hours, but 4 of those hours was on a plane, so it wasn't the best. And then I had to dive straight into work. I literally had 7 meetings that day on top of a presentation that I had to give for a class. But made it through. That was on Monday. So I made it through, even though I landed at like 5 in the morning. Pushed through, didn't prepare at all for the presentation. Loki kind of got cooked. My partner carried me, bro. He's a real one for that. But we made it through. Anyways, moving on to the philosophizing section of the pod. These are things that I've been thinking about. The first thing is kind of like a reminder, because I remember I definitely have talked about this in past episodes, but this weekend was a reminder of this fact, is the way I define blessings. The way I define blessings is something that helps me toward my dream self. Because I hold my dream self as like this standard or this measuring stick that I use for literally everything else. And I think blessings is no different. Because when I interpret blessings in this way, it allows me to recognize things that normally people would see as like terrible or absolutely tragic, but it allows me to reinterpret those as like these positive things that help me toward a greater goal, that help me toward my dream self. And the perfect example, like I keep bringing up, is the myth of Sisyphus. This dude rolling a boulder up a hill, it's like, how does he have purpose? Like, this sucks, this is terrible. And the way that I make sense of it is this idea of him progressing toward his dream self. And I think the reason I thought of this idea or was reminded of this is because I wrote like a little Mother's Day post, like basically just thanking my mom for everything she has done. And in that post, I talk about how she's gone through some things, bruh. Like losing her mom at 11, being the oldest daughter of 6 kids, having to grow up super fast as a kid, and then working like 3 jobs as a single mother for 5 kids. Like that's insane to me. But these are all things that has happened, adversity that has happened, and you can even apply it to like my life as well. Where I've been through like some tough things that other people would see as like terrible or tragic. But I think it's powerful in reinterpreting those things as blessings. Because if it weren't for going through all those things that I went through as a kid, it wouldn't make me to who I am today. And so that is why I reinterpret those or label those as blessings that I got to go through. So that was like a reminder lesson that I've been thinking about. The other thing is kind of an extension of what I talked about in the last episode, was the ethics of AI. I think I have more of a clear idea because I was listening to a podcast, I think it was by a filmmaker or someone in the entertainment industry. They're asking like, hey, do you think AI is going to take over all these jobs? Because now there's this software called Sora, and Sora will literally make a video. If you go into Sora, or even like ChatGPT, I think they're both OpenAI. But if you go into this AI thing, you tell it to make a video of like someone walking down New York City, then it'll actually make a legit video. But what it's not able to do, and what I don't think it will be able to do for a very, very long time, is have good taste. Which is the differentiator between like the human director who's actually creating some type of film versus the AI. Because you can't go to the AI and be like, hey, make me a sick movie. And then it spins up like Avengers Endgame or something. Or like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Like, it cannot do that. Maybe you can go to the AI and be like, hey, make me something like ideas for this Spider-Man film that I'm trying to create. Maybe it could give you ideas, like starting points of where to jump off from. But the big differentiator is the fact that the film director has the taste to know that, oh, that is a good idea and that is not. And I think in a similar way, that's how I've used AI for like philosophy papers. It's like, hey, what are some objections? What are some arguments you think would fit well with this type of idea that I have? And then look at what it says, like, oh, that one's not very good, but this one makes a lot of sense. And then I choose whichever one I think is the best argument. And then put that into my paper. It's like, that is where I think taste goes a long way. And I probably still have to get clear on what exactly taste is. Right now, I think it's pretty synonymous with like intuition. It's like, which argument intuitively seems best? Or which film idea intuitively seems best? Which is kind of tough, low-key, to build up that muscle. But anyways, moving on to the next thing I've been thinking about is the wall. Okay, oh my goodness, I forgot to include this in my dub. That's crazy, I forgot to include this. But last week, I ran my first 20 miles. Oh my goodness, that was brutal, bro. That was easily the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Like, hands down, bro. I think the only reason it got so tough was because after mile 18, well, first of all, mile 14, I hit the bean. And I was dead because I couldn't find any water. And so I had to run 2 more miles before I found any water. Mile 16, I found water. I was like, oh, perfect. This will keep me going. And then I ran 2 more miles. And then by mile 18, I was just dead. I was gassed. I had no more energy. The only thing I had left were the little like running gels, the running goos. But I hated those. I literally almost threw up as I was doing my first gel. So I was like, I'm not doing the gels again. I ran out of the waffles, which is my only source of carbs left. So it was like, either do the gels or just suffer through the next 2 miles. And I chose to suffer through the next 2 miles. So that was my my 20-mile run. Honestly, super happy I did it. That was a big dub. But now I'm hyped for the marathon that's coming up. I think it should be good because for the 20-miler, I honestly didn't rest enough. Like 5 days before that 20-miler, I did a half marathon. And then 2 days before the 20-miler, I did 8 miles. So I probably didn't have enough rest, which is why I'm thinking coming into the marathon, it should be better. And also on top of that, I didn't have the proper nutrition. Like, I didn't have enough carbs to keep me going to finish off that long run. So I'm honestly super confident about the marathon, but it'll be like a couple more weeks till I get there. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. Okay, the reason I thought of that was because after I did that run, I talked with my manager at Leland. He's another runner. Like, he's actually a dog at running. But we were talking about this idea called the wall. And in running, or at least in marathons, the wall is usually between like 20, 22 miles. And it's just this wall is like, man, I quit. It's like the I quit wall. Or in some ways, like, that's when the marathon really begins. Because he was telling me, like, after he makes it through the half marathon, like, at mile 13, he's like, okay, I've done 20% of it. Like, I'm just getting started. Because the last half marathon, the last like 5 miles, that's when it really starts turning up. Because you've already been running like, well, for me, I would have already been running like 4 miles and I got another, or 4 hours, and I got another hour to go. Like, that's just kind of crazy. Well, we're talking about this wall, and I'm honestly still trying to think through it, but he said, just make sure you don't hit the wall in school or something like that. I was like, dang, low-key, I think I've already hit that wall. But it's just the idea that you can apply the wall concept to like a whole bunch of different things. It's basically, if there's anything that you want to quit, it's like, okay, you can apply the concept of a wall to that. But more specifically, he brought up this idea that the way to overcome the wall is by telling yourself, or like this mantra, saying that I'm not tired, I'm just hungry. And he got this phrase from someone else who was like doing half Ironmans and 100-mile runs, like crazy stuff like that. And the mantra that that guy tells himself is, I'm not tired, I'm just hungry. Because it's pretty true. Like, the reason I hit the wall so hard at mile 18, but the reason I did that was because I was just hungry. Like, I didn't have enough energy. And I think it's kind of interesting because you can kind of tell yourself something similar with like work, or it's I'm not tired, I'm just hungry. Like I want to go out there and kill it. I don't know, something like that. That was the first idea that came to mind, which is why I thought it was so insightful. But I don't know. I think I still got to think that one through and flesh that idea out a little more. But the last thing for the philosophizing section is the idea that life is a game of trade-offs. And the reason I've been thinking about this is because I was watching this YouTube video by one of those like founder guys who's recording the journey of building his startup. He's a really cool guy who dropped out of Stanford Business School. But when he was at Stanford Business School, that was the first time that he realized in his life that you really can't do everything. Because as a kid, he prided himself as someone who could just go out and do everything. Or even growing up, like after graduating college, he did a venture fund or joined a venture firm and closed a huge deal for them. So he really was just out there killing it. But it was at Stanford where he realized that he can't do everything. And the other example was another GSB guy, actually the founder of Leland. And he said something similar where it's at Stanford where he realized, and this actually gets into the next section of the podcast, which is the weekly roundup. But there's a quote that he had in a podcast that I listened to recently. And it said, what I don't do defines what I can do. This hits on the idea that life truly is a game of trade-offs. Because we're never going to be able to do literally every single thing in the world. So at the end of the day, we're going to have to make some decisions. And we're really going to have to choose, what do we want to do? Or for me specifically, like what do I want to do? And more importantly, in some ways, is what do I not want to do? And in the podcast that I was listening to, that for this episode I'll use for my weekly roundup, the podcast is called A Conversation on Focus and Finding Your Life's Work. But it was by the host of the Founders Pod. Name is David Senra. And he basically is a super like big successful business podcast that dives into the biographies of cracked founders. And if you think about it, like these founders use all the information at their disposal, maybe like 400 years worth of info. They distill it down into like the actions they do and take action on that info. And then they live like, I don't know, like 40-ish years of the prime era. And then this guy distills that down into like 40 minutes worth of a podcast episode. And in this podcast episode, he distilled it down into one word. So these are like all the foundings from most of the cracked founders there are ever. And his one word was focus. Because what he noticed with all these founders is that they chose one thing, said no to everything else, and just kept doing that one thing for years. Even if that one thing was like something dumb, like running shoes or fried chicken. But these founders, like the founder of Raising Cane's, or like the founder of Nike, they pick that one thing, say no to everything else, and they stick with it for ages. Which is what he's found is like one of the successful traits or must-have traits as a founder. Or at least as like a major founder. And I think this quote from the Leland founder kind of gets at that. Is like, what I don't do defines what I can do. And this was a different approach from another quote that, I don't know, I think I've definitely heard this other quote a lot more. It's, how you do anything is how you do everything. And with that idea is like, yo, you really got to do everything like to utmost perfection. But a paradigm shift is when you accept the fact that no, there are some things that I will not be able to do. And by not doing those things, I could do other things a lot more, or at least a lot better. And the article I found also connects back to this idea of focus. And here were a couple of quotes from the article that I think were really, really cool. The one that I think hits home the most would be saying no is like saving money, saying yes is spending it. And this, for me, clarifies the fact that like saying no should be the default. Because when I'm constantly saying yes all the time, I'm like just giving away my time for free. And that's like spending money. But when I say no, it's saving my time. And I tend to be like a frugal, cheap person anyway, so I'm always down to save money. I'm always down to save time, so maybe that'll be my action item. Or my weekly intention maybe will be making no the default. So that way I can open up my time for things that truly matter. And the things that I actually enjoy. Like, for example, flying to Vegas over the weekend to surprise mom for Mother's Day. And then the book that I found, like I mentioned, going off of this idea of focus, the book that I found was the biography of Nike's founding story called Shoe Dog. It was really interesting. The couple takeaways that I had was that I didn't realize that the founder of Nike, Phil McKnight, I think his name is, but the founder of Nike came from daddy's money, bruh. I did not realize that. Where his dad was like super rich. And so it afforded him to do a bunch of things that he wouldn't have been able to do if his dad did not have money. For example, he went and traveled the world after he graduated from Stanford Business School. And even after that, he asked his dad for a massive loan that his dad was able to give. And then even after that, as he was like starting the company, he went to all the local banks. And the reason they gave him a chance was because of who his dad was, because of that reputation. So I guess the reason I've been thinking about this is because there's kind of two archetypes, or more like a spectrum of what I've seen in ambitious people. The first one is kind of like Phil, where he came from money, his parents are already rich, but he's got these high expectations that he wants to live up to. Maybe the expectations are from his parents, maybe they're just from himself, but these are expectations that he wants to live up to. Then the other archetype, I think, is like closer to my side, is more like coming up from nothing, or not from much, and then being hungry to go out there and make it. I don't necessarily think it's like one or the other, but I think that's kind of the spectrum. And ambitious people fall somewhere on that spectrum. I think so. At least, I think off the top of my head, that's where I would place every ambitious person that I know. Somewhere on this spectrum. But finally, the question for this episode was from a podcast I was listening to from Layla Hormozi, who was talking about how she responds to hardship or adversity. And her response is with a question, and it's, how could this be good? And the reason I like this idea so much is because it tries to find the positive in something. And it's similar to what I do when I redefine blessings in something that progresses me toward my dream identity, or toward my dream self. Because it's kind of similar to the question of, how can this help me toward my dream self? This is kind of similar. It's like, how could this be good? Whatever hardship she's going through is like, how could this be good? So that is everything for the philosophizing section. Now, finally moving on to the life update. These are the most important areas of my life, starting with my God, myself, my people, then my work, in that order. First, update on my God. I would say, like I mentioned, is that I definitely want to be more grateful, I think. Like looking up and just being like, man, thank God for everything. Like, not even sarcastically, it's like legitimately, thank God that I'm able to go on this walk in the bright sun on a nice day, and yeah. But update on myself, oh yeah, it was good getting that 20-miler in. Honestly, my legs were dead for like the next 2 days, but finally got back in. Sleep was kind of thrashed from the Vegas trip, but getting it in order slowly but surely and continuing the runs. Update on my people, it's going well. Yeah, I was able to fly to Vegas, which was a big dub. Spend time with them over there. Actually, a funny thing happened while I was there. So I was grabbing dinner, like a Mother's Day dinner. Like, bro, some of the best food I've had in ages. While I was there for the Mother's Day dinner, there was this other family that walked in. And I was like, oh my goodness, I know that guy. But it was like one of the successful Polynesians. Because I remember when I was starting off in the game of like LinkedIn and business and stuff, I would just reach out to a ton of people, a ton of Polynesians who have made it. And I'm like, hey, would you mind like hopping on a call, quick 15, 30-minute call? And literally every single person, they're like, oh yeah, of course. Love to see someone out here grinding. Like, that's great to see. And he was one of the people I reached out to, and he said no. I was like, dang, that's crazy. And even recently, I think I reached out to him a couple more times. I was like, hey, there's this event that's going on. Would you want to go and guest speak it? And no response. I was like, dang, that's crazy. But then I finally saw him in person. He has no idea who I am. So it was kind of like an interesting roundabout moment. I was like, dang, I know this guy, but I don't want to seem like a fan, but I also don't want to like let him know that I know he never responded or left me on red. It's chill. He's a cool guy. But that was a funny moment. Anyways, moving on to update on my work. It's been, well, like I mentioned with Leland stuff, building up that rep of being someone who gets it done. Also, I found like the system to make school as easy as possible. So that's been super nice to just like cruise through school basically. I recently been reading up on these things called stable coins. It's like this new crypto thing. I think would be super interesting to explore. So I don't know. Maybe I'll have more updates on stable coins in the next episode, but that's just like a seed that has been planted, or at least it was planted as of last night as I was reading random articles. But besides that, that's everything for this episode. I shall catch y'all later. I record these episodes completely free to share success with everyone. So the only thing I ask is that if you learned anything or found something interesting in this episode, just leave a review and share it with a friend. Only takes 5 seconds and it would mean the world. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next episode. Tatok, see you.